Okay, welcome to my tutorial on how to make a pattern for a color guard flag. Basically what you're going to need is just some old newspapers. It doesn't really matter like what kind of newspaper, and some glue. This is because you have to create a very large piece for the pattern itself. You will also need to have like a Sharpie or something like that so you can actually draw your pattern on the newspapers when you're finished. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, what you want to do is basically you want to open up your newspapers in a way where they're going to be lined up. For a typical color guard flag, which is 36 inches for the sleeve and about 54 inches long, you could go longer if you create a longer tail. You're going to need to go about 3 across wide. So what you're going to do then is, now that I've got my paper opened up here, we'll move these extra ones out of the way for the moment. Okay, so, and the lucky part about the newspaper is it's already got folds in it, so that actually helps you line things up. So what I'm going to do now is all I'm going to do is I'm going to take my glue. I'm going to take the glue, and all you're going to do is just run a nice little stream along the edge here. Now if you have a glue stick, that's even better. You don't have to deal with all this wet messiness here. Okay, and the reason why I use glue and not tape is because when you start to draw your pattern, since the tape is plastic, you can end up smudging your pattern or whatnot. And then what you do, kind of like, just match up your ends here, and then once those are matched up, go ahead and press it out. Now I use tacky glue because it dries very quickly. You can use Elmer's glue if you choose, or like I said, a glue stick. That really is your choice though. Okay, now that we got our first 2 pieces, and by the way, this right here, this width, this should be more than suitable enough for 36 inches. So now what we need to do is make sure we create a long enough page here that's going to give our 54 inches when we actually end up doing the pattern. So now what I'm going to do next is I'm going to go ahead and put together these top 2 pieces. And by the way, if you're not really good at like centering things or not very good at lining up edges, it really doesn't matter as long as you've got enough room to cover your pattern itself. Here we go. Go up the edge here. This tacky glue is a couple years old, so it's kind of already started getting thick. There we go. Alright, so now we line this edge up here, and going down to this edge here, and then press it out. Simple as that. Okay, I'll get back to you in a moment once I get all my 6 pieces put together. So it's 3 across the top, 3 across the bottom, and then we'll go from there. Okay, I'm back. So now you can see that I have all my pieces put together, and now I've got a very large area that I can work with. Okay, so as you can see that, now is the fun part. We actually get to go in and draw our pattern. Alright, that'll be on the next segment. Okay, next in the tutorial is starting your pattern. Now with this particular project, I've decided that I'm going to do an arc. There's different shapes and sizes of flags. An arc is the most traditional one today. So what you need to do is, since you have a straight line edge down one side, you don't have to worry about drawing out that part of the pattern. So what you need to do is, since I wanted the sleeve to be 36 inches, I went ahead and marked, as you can see there, I marked 36 inches to there. Okay, and as you can see, there's a leftover part here on the bottom. So what you need to do, since the flag is going to go into the shape of an arc, you need to come down to the other end and you need to measure 54 inches from that edge to there. Say hello to Raoul. Okay, and since we don't want to have a big fat end, then from here you want to measure 36 inches up. So that way you have an equal length on both the sleeve and on the end pieces. And then all you do now is kind of like connecting the dots. You draw the shape of your arc, which I will do here shortly and then show you, to join up the 2 points, and then you do the same thing down here. Draw the shape of your arc to the end point. This will kind of look like a tail. Alright? Alright, so I will be back as soon as I get that drawn. Okay, one thing that I forgot to mention was, if you want to have a consistent arc, as you can see, I've already drawn my bottom line out to the 54-inch point. And as you can see, I already drew my line up here to that point. What you need to do is, if you notice here, I've got little X's marked up along the top. Now what I did there is, all I did is I took my ruler and I measured 36 inches from where that bottom line was. So ideally what you're doing is you're creating like a little pass, so that way your top arc can match your bottom arc. Oops, it's down here. So that way it's 36 inches all the way down the arc. Okay, so now that I've done that, I'm going to go ahead and connect the dots. Okay, I finished drawing out my lines. Hopefully you can see them in this video, but as you can see, I have a perfectly shaped arc here for the flag. Now at this point, oh, and one other thing too, if you notice here on the top, I'll zoom in on that. You notice I didn't start at the very top of the paper when I was measuring my first 36-inch mark. And I think you can understand why. When you're doing the arc up, you need to allow room so you can arc that around like so. Otherwise, you'll run out of paper and then you're going to have to like glue another piece on so you have enough paper. So make sure that you leave a couple inches on the top, so that way when you get ready to do your arc, it will all fit on one paper. Now at this point, you can either cut out the shape of this flag and then draw your pattern on it, which is what I'm going to go ahead and do. Another way to do this too is, ultimately, if you don't want to accidentally, like, you know, mark something up with your Sharpie, then you might want to leave this paper intact until you've got it all done, so that way in case you go over a line or something, you're not going to end up coloring your carpet or anything like that. So the choice is yours. I have a pretty steady hand, so I'm going to go ahead and cut this out, and then we'll get to drawing our pattern. Okay, as you can see, I've got it cut out. This will kind of be what the arc of the flag is going to look like. So this is your outer edges and everything. Now it's time to actually draw the pattern. So with the pattern, I always suggest that you first draw on a piece of paper, so that way you get the pattern the way that you want it to look. Now the only difficulty level in this is to change the scale from what you put on the paper to this large flag size now. So that's just going to take a little bit of practice. What I do before I do the Sharpie is maybe use a colored pencil. Make sure it's not a sharp colored pencil, otherwise you're going to poke right through this newspaper. Make sure it's blunt. And then draw your pattern. This pattern that I'm going to make is not going to be extremely difficult, because I don't see why there needs to be an intricate flag for parades and pep rallies and all that kind of stuff. So I'm going to make a pretty basic pattern, and I'll be back in just a moment. Okay, so here's what pattern I'm going to make. I use Word, the Word document, to create my patterns, because I normally buy my fabrics through Band Shop, and they have the color swatches on there, and when you save those pictures, you can upload them into these shapes, so you can kind of see what your flag's going to look like. In this video, it probably looks a little more bluish down there at the bottom, but it's actually going to be a black, a dark gray, and a silver. And then of course on the top you have your oranges. So I'm going to go ahead and get this drawn, and then I'll show you what it looks like to scale. Okay, I've got my pattern all marked out. As you can see, in this one little area right here, I had a difference of opinion with that pen. What I'm going to do is I'm going to continue this curve. So if you can see the line that goes down to the curve, we're going to end at that right point there, not the other point, because it was making it too flat. So when I cut it out, it should be nice and curved. So it is okay on the patterns to make mistakes, because your finished product isn't going to reflect the mistakes. Also, it is important to number your pieces, because when you go to order your fabric, you need to be, and it does take about a week to 10 days to get it, you need to be able to remember what fabric it is that you ordered, because in the next segment here I'm going to talk about how to determine how much fabric you're going to need for each individual color. Anyway, this is now considered a complete pattern. So let's move on to the next segment, and then I'll show you how to mark up your pattern so that you know exactly what you need to do when you get your materials, and then happy sewing. Okay, in this part of the tutorial, now that we got our pattern pieces cut out and everything, now you need to determine the best way to save fabric and how much fabric you're going to need. What I do is I have myself a handy little diagram here. And most fabrics, especially the fabrics that I use for making flags, they come in 45-inch width. Okay? And with that being said, that kind of lets me know, you know, my limitations as far as how wide I can go on doing the patterns. When I do my patterns and I receive the fabric, usually what I do is I cut out rectangular pieces, so and then that's what I do for all the same color. So that way, when I get all the same color, I just stack them up and I put the one pattern piece on top of the fabric, and then all I have to do is just rotary cut it out, and then I have all my pieces all at once. You don't have to do this for each individual flag. This is pattern piece number 1, so it's the top left corner. As you can see, it's a big, long, gangly looking piece here. So what I'm going to do here is, obviously this long piece is going to be the yard length. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and put it on the furthest edge. So we got our 1 inch extra there. And you want to keep this squared out. So we're going to come over here, and that'll be 40 inches. So that's 40 inches long there. Oops. So what we're going to do then is we're going to draw our line and write 40 inches long. Okay, next what you're going to do is you're going to figure out the other length. So we'll go from here to here. I will need about 15 inches to make that work. So we're going to draw that on here and type and write 15 inches. Now, for this one, what I would do, since the one long length is 40 inches, I'm going to make this long length be the width of my fabric. So there'll be 5 inches left over on the end. And the reason why I'm going to do that is because even though it's 15 inches on the other measurement, and I know 15 divides into 45 by 3 times, not all fabrics are precisely 45 inches. So we'll let this 15 inch be what we're going to measure out on the length of fabric, and then the 40 inch be the 45 side. Thank you for watching this tutorial. It's been a pleasure.